Oh, like a bloody egg. Do you know what? Could not find the bloody car key. You'd think that I would leave it somewhere that I know. So the first night, I put it, so I'm not going to say where, but I remembered where I'd put it. And today, I thought I'd put it in a similar area, but not quite the same area. Like, it was like a foot away or something. And I was looking and looking, couldn't see it. And then I was looking where I didn't think I'd put it, but in the same vicinity. It's because it's this thin. It's like the size of a credit card, and it's not even a centimetre thick. And I looked in the area that it was, because I did find it eventually 3 times, and I was up and down the bloody stairs. Even though I knew I didn't leave it on a certain floor, I'm not saying what floor I left it on. And then I eventually found it after like 20 odd minutes. So we were getting out an hour later than yesterday anyway, but that's gone 20 minutes further. And then I didn't know where I was going to walk her, and then, because it's raining by the way, I'm always grateful when it rains at the weekends, because it makes my life easier getting in and out the house for obvious reasons. So I was stressed out about going out later. My anxiety's been through the roof. I felt sick all morning. I felt sick yesterday morning until I got to where I was going, and the sickness went, but the anxiety didn't fully go, because I knew at some point I'd have to go home twice. The second time was much harder for me, and I only just got home just before one of the main reasons that I struggle at the weekends. But there was an incident yesterday that made me sit in the car for a very long time after the walk, and I didn't want to go home, and that's all I can say, because it's just too upsetting. And then anyway, we'll change the subject. So literally just turned the monitor in the car on standby. It's here, by the way, like in the centre, and it switched my phone off, like from filming again. But it's literally the afternoon. Like yesterday when I left the house, it was just the morning, and then when I got to where I was going, because it is a drive away, I mean this was a drive away, this is like, I don't know how many minutes. I'm going to say less than half an hour, because if I say like, oh, it's 7 minutes away, which it isn't, that's just like example, people might work out where I'm going, and I don't want them to know where I'm going. But I'm somewhere where I've not been so far with the dog since getting this car. I'm going to switch the car off. Watch this go off again. Oh, it didn't. I'm impressed. Which pocket am I going to put the car key in? What was that? Do you know what? I'm driving along, the car's beeping at me. It's going beep, beep, beep. I'm like, why is it beeping at me? What's wrong with it? I'm looking at the display in front of me, but because I'm like trying to look at the road, I wasn't really looking. And then I was trying to get off the street that leads to the main road, and I glanced down, and the seat belt, or did I glance across there? Wherever I glanced, because there's 2 screens, it said that it was flashing the seat belt. I'm like, I've got my seat belt on, so I'm literally like pressing, like pushing it, and it suddenly went off, but it was clicked in, so I don't think it had clicked with the car's computer that it was clicked in, like, but it was stressing me out. I'm like, why are you beeping at me? Like, what have I done? It's not my car. I was a little bit stressed out about it being parked at the side of the house, even though my neighbour has turned the camera so it picks it up in case someone does try and damage it, because obviously it's not my bloody car. Obviously I'm on insurance and everything, but I don't want a brand new car to get damaged. Let me actually do. Let me just sort my hoods out. But I'm nowhere where anyone would ever find me that might want to hurt me. And I didn't even think of coming here, I just didn't know which way to go, and I kept thinking, oh, I'm going to have to go such and such a place. Somewhere, again, that I've not been with the dog since I got the car, but I can get to on foot if I need to. And then I went the opposite way and I'm thinking, where can I go? Because I don't want to go on grass because it's raining. And I remembered here. Now normally I go in a different way. It's very rare for me to come via this way. Let me put this in my pocket. That's in the jacket under this coat. The khaki I'm talking about. And zip it up. Oh, I need to lock the car with that. I can't zip it up yet. So I'm trying to make my mind up about something, and I was very much like 90% sure I was going to do this. When I got the dog out the car and started walking, and if I don't do what I'm about to do, I will edit the majority of this out, or all of it, who knows. I don't want to talk for ages, because if I'm going to do what I'm going to do, I want to be out the house before 4 o'clock. It's currently 13 minutes past 3, and when I had this initial idea, I wanted to be out the house by 3:30, but it's not likely because I'm soaking wet through, and I will have to do certain things if I decide to, because when I got home and came in, I was like, I don't know if I want to do it. Yes, I'm going to go back out again with the dog anyway, but I'm so tired mentally and physically, and I've got a headache. I mean, I don't even want to go into the headache right now because it's related to something that I got upset about in the car, which I stopped myself from talking about because I don't want to talk about it because it's upsetting. But anyway, as I'm like set off walking the dog, and this was like within a minute, like maximum. I don't even know how to even say this. It's not even weird or anything. I thought, because obviously I've got this car, and obviously I could go where I want. Now I don't want to be here particularly, and you know, I'm going to find it harder coming home from the second walk. Yes, there's currently no one around. It's raining. The rain's potentially going to stop, which I'm dreading. But people are out. Like, there's just no one around that I can see. When I came home, there was literally 2 children in the street that live up at the top end of the street. Like, literally no coats on in the rain. I don't know what was going on. I mean, I know when I was a child, A, I wouldn't have been probably playing out in the rain. And B, if I was outside, I'd have a coat on. So anyway, like less than a minute into the walk, I thought, should I go to Manchester, to where I used to live, when I used to live in a club? Like, I didn't actually live in the club, but my house was attached to the club. Now, I lived there for 4 years of my life. And I will say that if you've got children and you're thinking of living in a club or above a pub or whatever, your children grow up very fast because they're in an adult environment, and you can't protect them from what they're going to see or hear or anything that goes on. I mean, some things you probably can do, but it just depends on the circumstances. But your children are going to grow up faster because they're going to be exposed to things that they generally wouldn't be exposed to. And I left there when I was 10, and I've always wanted to go back, and I'm not going to go into all the reasons why I've always wanted to go back. And even though I still lived in Manchester once I left there, like not for a very long time, like we lived in a place called Flowery Fields, not even joking, and then we lived in Duckingfield, and then we went to Stockport briefly, even though we had lived in Stockport before we lived in where we lived in the club in Manchester. And then we came back up to Blackburn, even though obviously I live in Darwin. It's Blackburn with Darwin. I had a very different life living there. Everyone was like envious / jealous of me because of like where I lived, and like they thought it were cool. It's not necessarily cool. You're exposed to a large amount of adult stuff that you wouldn't be, even if like your parents took you to a pub for your Sunday lunch or whatever. It's totally different to your parents letting you go in the evenings when they've got events on, like adult events. Like, it's totally different, and you're surrounded by all sorts of people, and it's very different. Now, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and like, obviously it comes up every now and then with me about, like, obviously you have childhood memories, you remember things, and every now and then it'll come up where I used to live and things that had gone on or whatever. And I did live in quite an isolated area. Like, it wasn't a street full of houses or anything like that. I don't know if they've built houses on there since. Like, the club's on the main road, and then you turn round onto a street, and then you go past the club, and then there's my house attached to it. I mean, it's not my house, but... And next door used to be like... Well, it was an industrial area, and I think it still is. And then you'd have to, like, cross the road and go down a side street, and then down past another street to get to some houses. But there wasn't really any houses on my street. We were the only house. And anyway, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I thought about it and went on Google Earth, because of course I'm curious. Like, I know no one lives in that house, like, and I don't think anyone's ever lived in that house since we've lived in that house. And I went on, and like, there used to be a petrol station next door, like on the main road. Like, there was our street, and then the next thing along after the club was a petrol station, and that petrol station isn't there anymore by the looks of Google Earth. And like, we had loads of land behind the club, and that land doesn't exist. Well, some of it does, because they've made it into a car park for what the club now is, and the rest of the space, it's been made into something else. I'm not going to go into it too much. But all that land was like my playground, and there was loads of random stuff on there, which I might talk about in another video one day. And I had a lot of freedom. Like, a lot of freedom, probably way too much freedom. Like, I used to get on my bike and go all the way into centre of Denton, and it's so surreal for me now, looking back and thinking the things that I got up to, like, and that, like, what I could and couldn't do. Like, it's just like wild looking back. And like, the size of the back garden that we had, with all this land after the garden, with all this random stuff everywhere. And I mean the most random stuff ever. And when I went on Google Earth, not only have they bricked up the entrance to the house, because there was this big wall all down the side, like the length of the club and then the length of our house, and our house was like up these stone steps. They've bricked that up with like breeze blocks, and then the front door's been breeze blocked up, the front window's been breeze blocked up. Why is that such a mouthful? And the bedroom windows have got breeze blocks, but on the inside. And it's sad to look at it like that, because it could be still used as a house. They could rent that out. Like, I don't even know who owns all the building and everything. I don't know when they bricked it up. Like, did anyone live there afterwards? After us? Speak. I am curious about that. I'm curious about at what point did they then put a car park? Like, you have to go past our house, and then they've opened up the little side road, and then they've opened up into the land behind the house, well, the garden area, because they've obviously sold off a chunk of the land for something else. And then there's a car park for this thing there, and it's just so weird, because that was my back garden. I have all these questions about it, but it's so surreal to like see the house bricked up the way it's bricked up, and it's attached to the club. They could use that as for storage or something. I mean, you can't see the back of it. Like, maybe the back is open and it's used for storage. I don't know. I mean, I don't think if I do go there that I'm going to walk up to the car park and have a look. But I am curious. Like, I am so curious about it all. And I don't know if, like, me going there is the best idea. But sometimes you just need to go back places, don't you? For whatever reason, good or bad, you have to go back. And I've got the opportunity to get down there, spend an hour down there and come back, because I want to come back before it goes dark. Or I want to be more up towards this area when it goes dark. I don't necessarily have to be home before it goes dark, because I'm going to struggle to come home. Now, just before I started filming, I watched back the clips that I filmed in the car where I look like an egg. And something I said in one of the videos made me think, yeah, you should go. And I think it was to do with the fact that I know I'm going to struggle to come back later on. Especially if it stops raining, I am going to struggle, because I've got to park at the side of the house again. And I'm scared that I'm going to come home and they're going to be doing what I'm trying to prevent by parking there, to make sure no one tips me over the edge and makes me want to end my life, which I feel like most days. So there's part of me thinks that I should go out regardless. And like Manchester, like, I put the sat nav on in the car and it said something like 27 miles, which doesn't sound right. Because I'm pretty sure when we lived in Manchester, we rarely ever came up here to visit. And I always felt like it was hours away, and it probably wasn't hours away. But as a child, doesn't it feel like places are much further than what they are? So there's a big part of me that thinks I should go about 4 o'clock, because like it's coming up for past, it's like 25 past. I need to eat, take something to eat with me, because I will get hungry. I need to change my shoes because my feet are wet. I'll have to change my t-shirt, maybe my leggings, which don't feel dirty, but don't feel wet, I mean. And take all my walking stuff, because obviously when I'm down there, I'm going to find somewhere to park. And I'm going to walk her. And I might even drive up to Denton. Literally, like, I can get on the motorway at Denton anyway. There's two areas. And I do have the time to do it. And it'll do me good to get away from here. But when I'm down there, I'm going to think, oh, I want to go over to Flowery Fields. I know that's totally changed. In fact, my mum's best friend, I presume they're still best friends. I mean, she don't like my stepdad. She once lived on there after we moved off. I don't know if she lives on there now anyway, but they did do some new build houses on there. I'm not necessarily going to drive on there, and I don't think I would drive through Duckingfield where we used to live. We had to leave there because we moved on there not realising how rough Duckingfield is. Well, that particular estate, and there was stuff going on. Basically, it's one of those places, if you're not born onto the estate, you're very much not welcome. Nothing too bad happened to me, but there was targeting going on towards the house. Even though we did have friends on the street, we were left, like, they didn't do out to us, but there were people on there that, if you're not born on the estate, you basically, they don't want you on there. And yeah. And we ended up moving to Stockport, and we lived in my grandparents' house because my dad's dad had died 3 years previous, and then my dad's mum died a couple of months before, and it was on the market, and my dad asked his brothers if it was okay if we lived there whilst it was on the market, whilst we waited to get a house up here. I mean, I always wish that we hadn't come back up here. Even now, although I wouldn't change it now, but if, like, I wish we'd stayed down in Manchester. My mum still would have left my dad. She was never happy. She's never happy anyway. But at least I would have been in Manchester, and I did struggle with the cultural change. And I know, like, people thinking, what the hell? If you live in Manchester, especially as a child, and then you come up to Blackburn, Darwin, or probably any of the local area, there is a massive cultural change, and you would be very surprised by the changes and how different it actually is, how different it is at school, how different, different sayings, different words that you use for things. And I had a very strong Mancunian accent for many years. And even now when people are talking to me, they're like, are you from Manchester? And I'm like, well, I lived in Manchester, but if you went to Manchester, you wouldn't ask me that question. Because the Mancunian accent is such a strong accent that if I lived back in Manchester, they'd probably ask me if I'm from Lancashire or something. They'd be like, are you from Blackburn? Because the accent is so different. But there are things that I say that people pick up on and they're like, you sound like you're from Manchester. Yeah, I did live in Manchester as a child, and that's probably when you pick up your accent. But I have, especially the last few years, I have picked up more of a local accent. But I think to get off the street, I think I should go. Now, it could change, and if it changes, then this footage will get deleted. I might keep a bit of it, if I can use it, if I'm not talking about where I was planning on going. But it depends on if the rain stops, if there's lots of people outside. I mean, I do have to leave with the dog at some point. And going to Manchester will get me away from here for 3 to 4 hours. So, and when I come back, it's going to be really hectic because I'll have more washing of the dogs to do. I will need to wash my hair. I need to get everything ready because I need to leave here early tomorrow morning to do what our plans are tomorrow. So I think I am going to go and get ready, even if I don't go to Manchester. Maybe I could go for a drive somewhere and just get away from here. I know I still have to come back, and that's the difficult part for me. But if I am going to go out, I want to leave in half an hour, and I need to have something to eat. Maybe take a sandwich with me or some snacks or something. Take the dog's waters, some extra water, and just go. I would like to go to Manchester. I am worried about the traffic. I don't want to get stuck in traffic. I could check what the traffic's like. But I should go somewhere just to get away from here because, things have happened that are really impacting how I feel, and I don't particularly want to be here. And I hate the weekends. Most people love them, but I dread them, especially from Saturday evening onwards.